Hello, very good evening to you. Welcome to North West Tonight with Kelly Foran. Our top story. Hopes of a new chapter and a new start. Is there really a last-minute lifeline for Morecambe Football Club? The club were just days away from immediate closure. Also tonight, a grassroots football coach described as a monster of a man, jailed for sexual abuse. The North West marks 80 years since VJ Day. St Helens says goodbye to dual-code rugby legend, teacher and broadcaster Ray French after his death at the age of 85.
St Helens Barnumber, I do everything for St Helens. Just the best commentator rugby league's ever had.
And it was a bit of a misty start, but most spaces saw plenty of sunshine again today. Can it hold on for the weekend? Join me at the end of the programme to find out if it will be heatwave conditions Saturday and Sunday.
After months on the brink, there's renewed hope this evening that Morecambe Football Club might be saved. A statement yesterday issued by current owners, the Bond Group, says an agreement has been reached in principle with Punjab Warriors to take over the Shrimps. Former director Rod Taylor has been told the final paperwork is still expected to be completed today, as Yunus Muller reports.
On a bright sunny afternoon in Morecambe, were the prayers of this group asking for the football club's survival being answered. When we arrived, the former co-chairman of the club received this call.
But it's definitely happening, yeah. Yeah, great. Thanks, Gulji. I'll be back to you shortly.
That was from a representative of Punjab, and he was just saying that they're hopeful to get the deal over the line today, i.e. paperwork signed and completed.
There's an agreement in principle for Jason Whittingham and the Bond Group to sell their majority stake to Punjab Warriors. Their statement yesterday said it showed the willingness of both sides to compromise in the best interests of Morecambe Football Club, its supporters and the wider community. It paves the way for continued stability and a positive future both on and off the pitch. Fans group the Shrimps Trust has given that a cautious welcome.
There's no football club as a football club exists. You know, there's not a team, there's not the staff to run the ground, you know.
Patrick, we have been there before. June the 7th was that initial first agreement, and then we've had chaos effectively, but you're more hopeful this time round.
Last night was the first time in a while it felt like we're reading the same chapter of a book, you know, and asking different angles of it and coming up with different answers, all for things, and it feels like we've been able to turn that extra page and think of, right, we're going to be all right.
There were fears of a repeat of what happened to Bury in 2019, when it was expelled from the EFL over financial issues. The HMRC has informed the club about a winding up petition, but there is confidence liabilities can be met with a takeover. Morecambe's first home game of the season was scheduled for tomorrow, but the club is suspended from the National League, who will meet next week to discuss the Shrimps' future in the competition.
These clubs really matter to these towns.
This prayer event was organised by the Anglican bishops of Lancaster and Blackburn to reflect concern over the impact of losing the club.
But I'd love to see a new regeneration of Morecambe Football Club, a good way forward, so that the town can thrive going forward, because actually sport, and particularly football, is a real way in which people grow in confidence.
If there is another delay, that will not come as a complete surprise. But for many, this time it feels different. Yunus Muller, BBC North West Tonight, Morecambe.
A former football coach has been jailed for 31 years for what prosecutors say is one of the biggest child sex abuse cases ever seen in Cheshire and Merseyside. William Woods was convicted of 57 different counts of abuse against 6 boys and 2 girls across a 30-year period. Some of them addressed him in court today and told him how he destroyed their lives. Phil McCann was there.
William Woods destroyed childhoods and left his victims with pain, trauma and anxiety that stayed with them for all of their lives. That's what some of those victims told his sentencing hearing here this morning. William Woods had 8 victims in total, all of them children between the mid-1970s and 2006. He abused those children in Northwich and in Crewe, attempting to rape some, inciting them to take part in sexual activity and acts of gross indecency. There was also physical abuse. Now, he was known as a football coach, although none of the children in this trial were known to him through the clubs where he coached. This, though, was one of the biggest child sex abuse cases that prosecutors in Cheshire and Merseyside have ever dealt with.
The depravity of Wood's behaviour and what he put the victims through knew no bounds. He groomed, manipulated, threatened and bribed his way through their lives.
Whilst he's been in custody, he has told in his interview that he admitted to all the offences and that he's remorseful. Personally, it's too little too late.
The victims were all entitled to lifelong anonymity, but 3 came here in person this morning to address Woods in person. One said their childhood had been destroyed and their life changed forever. He said he felt rage towards Woods, but giving evidence in front of him felt like he was able to stand up to his abuser for the first time. Others talked of having years of stress, pain, anxiety, despair, trouble holding down relationships and jobs, drug addiction, and of having suicidal thoughts, all of which they traced back to Woods.
He denied it throughout, said they were all liars and that he was telling the truth, portrayed himself as this really good man, this really good dad.
Before he was driven to prison, the judge said that Woods was an arrogant and cruel man, jailing the 67-year-old for 31 years. The victims of Woods, who'd been crying in court, let out a quiet cheer. The judge said that they'd shown tremendous courage. Phil McCann, BBC North West Tonight, Chester Crown Courts.
A roundup of some of the other news across the northwest now, and police are struggling with protesters outside a Stockport hotel used to accommodate asylum seekers. The latest pictures, as you can see, show officers trying to restrain a protester outside the Britannia Hotel on Dialstone Lane. Around 60 officers are currently trying to control more than 200 anti-asylum seeker protesters there. A driver who hit a pregnant woman and killed her unborn child as he sped through a Lancashire village has been jailed for 13 years. 20-year-old Ashir Shahid from Walton Dale admitted his dangerous driving caused the death of the baby boy in Bamber Bridge last September. EasyJet says it's still investigating how 2 of its planes clipped wings at Manchester Airport early this morning. No one was hurt, but all flights were temporarily halted. Hundreds of passengers who were bound for Paris and Gibraltar had to wait for other aircraft. The Air Accident Investigation Branch has been informed. Now, today, as you know, has marked the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. VJ Day, or Victory Over Japan Day, is celebrated each year on the 15th of August to commemorate Japan's surrender to the Allied forces in 1945. Events took place across the northwest, including in Nantwich in Cheshire, from where Zoe Toes reports.
May we who have enjoyed the freedom thereby won look back with gratitude and look forward with commitment to the cause of peace and goodwill between peoples and nations.
A town coming together to honour the bravery and sacrifice of those who served in the Far East 80 years ago. As the news of Japan's surrender spread, streets erupted in joy and relief. It marked a new era of peace. Today, the Northwest remembers.
My father was in the 14th Army, the Forgotten Army as they called it. He fought in Burma, but he never talked about it. I think lots of them actually just seemed to close it away in their minds so they didn't discuss what they'd been up to. Days like today put things into perspective for me. We mustn't forget the sacrifice and dedication that these people give to us to keep us safe.
People went out there, left families, left children, and particularly the Burma Railway, where I knew 2 men who worked in the Burma Railway. One of them was my brother-in-law, and his father managed to come home from the Burma Railway, but was a changed man, a very changed man.
I served in some of the wars, in the last wars, and you do remember people at certain times of the year, and it does get emotional.
Among the crowds, 99-year-old Jack Corbett, a Burma veteran who sacrificed so much. Today, he remembered his comrades. In the months after Japan surrendered, 20,000 troops arrived home on ships which docked in Liverpool. In the city today, that historic role of welcoming troops home was remembered. And on the Isle of Man, wreaths were laid at the National War Memorial in St John's. As the region gathers to remember, we're reminded of the sacrifices made and the lives changed forever.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today.
Zoe Toes, BBC North West Tonight.
Now, someone else marking VJ Day today was 103-year-old veteran James Fenton. He was at the centre of celebrations at the National Arboretum earlier. He received a royal welcome. He met King Charles and Queen Camilla. James grew up in Lancashire and now lives on the Isle of Man. He fought against the Japanese in World War II and described the country's surrender as a godsend for his unit. Annie Knowlson has more.
For your tomorrow, we gave our today.
Poignant words spoken by the last surviving Burma Star recipient living on the Isle of Man. James Fenton was drafted into the Lancashire Fusiliers in July 1942. He was sent overseas, and while the location was kept a secret, he soon realised he was going to be fighting Japanese forces in Burma. James remembers the brutal terrain of the jungle vividly.
Sometimes used to have a spotter plane, and that was to tell us where the Japanese positions were, and they would then range the guns on the Japanese positions, firing at them. And that is how we moved through the jungle. You had to move somewhere where you could fire the guns. I mean, in the middle of the jungle, you couldn't just put them anywhere. You had to fire so that the guns weren't obstructed by the jungle or the trees.
The Burma campaign was a series of battles fought between December 1941 and September 1945. The Japanese surrendered when the second of 2 atomic bombs were dropped. James said it was only then that he thought he might survive the war.
If perhaps they had delayed that for 3 months, maybe 4 months, we were in a position then to make this landing on the Japanese mainland. And that eventually would have been the slaughter of so many of the British and European and native soldiers that were making this attack. I can feel sorry for all the Japanese that died on the 2 strokes of that atomic bombs. But then when I look back, I say it was them or us.
James has only shared his memories later in life.
I never told my wife about Burma. She didn't know anything about it. In fact, she's never seen these pictures.
Today, James attended the Royal British Legion's National Service to mark the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, remembering the lives lost so our freedoms could continue. Annie Knowlson, BBC North West Tonight.
What a wonderful man. We'll be revisiting VJ Day at the end of the programme. But first, the funeral of rugby league legend Ray French, who died last month, aged 85, took place in his hometown of St Helens today. For many years, this man was BBC's voice of the sport, commentating, you may remember, on TV and radio, and international in both rugby codes. He made more than 300 appearances for St Helens and Widnes, and that was all whilst working as a school teacher at the same time. Andy Gill reports.
An honour guard of current Saints players as Ray French's family carry his coffin into St Helens Parish Church. Hundreds of people inside to hear moving tributes from his family.
He actually was just the most enthusiastic fan of the game you will ever meet. Both games, actually. League and Union. But he loved League more.
And from those in the sport.
We will miss him, but more importantly, we'll remember him as a man who truly loved his sport and truly loved his town. A great man, a truly great, great man.
Ray French was an England international in both rugby union and league. He played more than 300 times for Saints and later for Widnes. But many here remember him as an English teacher and rugby coach at Cowley School.
Came to the school a hero, the local hero, and you thought, we're not going to get much out of this guy. He's not interested. He'll survive on his fame. And absolutely the opposite was true. Hard-working, inspiring teacher, couldn't do enough for you.
Ray created a school's rugby dynasty, a small state school from St Helens, being known all over the country for the type of rugby they played.
But it was as a rugby league commentator that millions came to know him.
Goodness gracious me, this could be the try of the season! What a try from Melanie Hanley!
And there were these memories from people following the service outside.
He was a lovely man, very gentleman.
St Helens Barn and Brad, who do everything for St Helens. Just the best commentator rugby league's ever had.
He was a legend. The rugby league commentators, he was the best. He was the top man.
Though synonymous with rugby league, Ray French was also president of his local rugby union club.
When he went into the dressing room with 15 big lads, they would immediately feel 2 foot stronger.
His grandson said despite the accolades, Ray remained humble and talked to everyone in the same way, whether they were a drunken fan or the late Queen. Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight, St Helens.
On to sport now. Julia's back tonight, and while all of our EFL teams have already kicked off their campaigns, this weekend the Premier League is back and the champions get underway tonight, but we're expecting what will no doubt be an emotional evening at Anfield.
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly, and that is because tributes will take place ahead of Liverpool's game tonight against Bournemouth at Anfield to Diogo Jota. His family are expected to be at the stadium later with tributes planned before the game. We do have 5 North West teams ready to do battle, so let's start tonight at Anfield. After winning the Premier League title on his first go, Arne Slot has been trusted with one of the biggest summer budgets Liverpool have had for some time. The most expensive signing, Florian Wirtz, cost £116 million from Bayer Leverkusen. The head coach admits spending a huge sum doesn't guarantee success.
Yeah, but the reason why that is so difficult lays mainly in the fact there are so many competitors that can also win the league over here. So to win it once is already very special, let alone if you can win it twice in 3, 4, 5 years, or as we did twice in 5 years, and City did even better than us in the last few years.
Burnley's Premier League return begins at 3 o'clock tomorrow with a trip to Tottenham. The Clarets have been busy in the transfer window with 13 new faces coming in, including 6-time title winner Kyle Walker from Manchester City and Armando Broja from Chelsea, who had an injury-prone spell at Everton last season. For the past 2 campaigns, the 3 teams that have come up from the Championship have gone straight back down. So can Scott Parker buck that trend?
Every single player sitting in the changing room, every single one associated with this club wants to be in the Premier League, the best league in the world, in my opinion, and that's exactly where we are.
The 5:30 kick-off tomorrow sends Manchester City to Wolves as they look to return to winning ways. Last season was the first time since Pep Guardiola's debut campaign in 2016-17 that the club finished without any silverware. Despite some business being done this summer, there's big hope for the return of Rodri. The Ballon d'Or winner missed nearly all of last season with a serious injury.
Rodri is just the metronome to City's midfield, and he will bring that stability throughout the transitions we saw last season with City and with Pep. We were like a knife through butter so many times on the transition. Teams would just come and the transition between defence and attack, we just didn't have the steel in the middle of the park.
Sunday sees Manchester United handed a box office game with Arsenal, but it's felt a long time since this fixture was a title decider. Ruben Amorim knows he has to get things right after a 15th place finish, and he's had the backing from the boardroom with arrivals including Mateus Cunha from Wolves in a deal thought to be in the region of £200 million. But could that put pressure on the head coach?
I think it's definitely on him this season. I think finishing 15th last season and also in the summer going out and spending
quite a bit of money on the likes of Brian Mbeumo, Mateus Cunha and obviously Benjamin Sesko, then the expectation is going to be there and the pressure's on him. But I think he'll be okay. I think he'll thrive off it, and I think he'll succeed.
And Everton will have to wait until Monday night to kick their season off. They go to newly promoted Leeds. Since the takeover at the end of last year, the return of David Moyes and a new stadium, it's fair to say most fans are feeling positive for the future of the club. Though the manager insists he wants more in before deadline day, but there's one star signing from the other end of the M62 that has the Toffees talking.
Jack Grealish! Well, what more do you want, right? Marquee signing. I think Evertonians all over the world are going to be pinching themselves.
What a footballer. It's just a pleasure to watch, and he'll give the team some creativity that they've been desperate for quite a number of years now.
Finally from me, Super League and Crisis Club Salford's match at home to Wakefield on Sunday has been called off due to welfare concerns. Elsewhere, the top two clash tonight with Wigan at home to Hull KR, and we'll bring you the results in our late bulletin with you, Kelly, at 10:30.
We will. I'll still be here at 10:30. If you want to stay with me, you're more than welcome. Thank you, Julia. Now, we're going back to VJ Day now, and one of the deciding aspects of the Second World War was the aircraft that played a huge part in the Allies' victory. You may know many were made right here in the northwest, not least at the Fairey Aviation Factory in Stockport. And this weekend, their band will return to their traditions, and someone will be there who remembers their very first notes. Andrew Lindsay reports.
It's a sound familiar to this factory since 1937. The Fairey Band started service the same year as Joe Jervis. Then 14, he's back to witness rehearsals, aged 102.
The band was important. They used to play for us at lunchtime. Lifted people's spirits. Things couldn't have been worse at the time.
Once war was underway, he planned to be a pilot, but the eyes didn't have it. The fitter, deemed unfit to fly, fought his war from the factory floor.
How would you describe what it was like in this factory during the war?
People were very calm. The planes came over to bomb Fairey's.
They hit the biscuit factory when they tried to bomb this factory.
Yeah. It overshot. And there'd be a lot of really broken biscuits that day.
From the present day at KNDS through Williams Fairey Engineering to Fairey Aviation, and they significantly made components for the Fairey Delta II, instrumental in the development of the Concorde, and also in World War I making biplanes under the National Aircraft Factory Scheme. 110 years of history on the very same site, yeah.
Fairey's made fighters for other firms, had staff who'd become more famous in other companies, and across 3 local sites employed 24,000 people.
Of which 87% were unskilled labour working on that war effort.
And here is evidence of the great speed-up in aircraft construction.
Fairey became synonymous with British aviation, not least on bombing the Bismarck.
At Heaton Chapel, the King makes a tour of the Fairey Aviation Works, and everybody's happy. Well, nearly.
Today, part of the multinational KNDS, it concentrates on land defence, armoured vehicles and bridges to carry them. 8 decades since the war ended, still needed.
There was tens of thousands of prisoners of war of the Japanese as well, many of whom were from the Stockport area. And the conditions that they went through during their 3.5 years of occupation at the hands of the Japanese was terrible. They came home, they were told just to get on with their lives.
The band helped.
It counted for a lot because it made things normal.
"80 years on, VJ Day will be commemorated here as much as anywhere. Nearly a third of England's veterans live in the northwest, and on Sunday in Romilly, this band will return to its roots in honour. Andrew Lindsay, BBC Northwest Tonight, Heaton Chapel.
Wow, music can be so powerful, can't it? It can really cheer me up anyway, as can the weather, Abby.
Yes,
Is it
no
going
pressure.
to this weekend?
Yeah, do you know what? There are very few times that I get to stand here and say it's going to be dry, sunny and warm this weekend, and it is. So that's a treat. It was quite misty and murky there this morning. Thank you to our weather watcher out and about for capturing this rather murky shot in Eccleston. But the sun came out and it didn't take long, really, did it, for that low cloud to miss. So thank you to the Whippet Walker for sending this photo in. If you do enjoy the weather this weekend and you manage to capture some photos and you'd like to send them in to us here at North West Tonight, we would love to receive them. All the details on the screen behind me. You can send them directly into me on social media, or you can sign up and become one of our BBC weather watchers. So it is set to stay dry, sunny and warm this weekend. We do still have high pressure in charge of our weather. Here it is, not really moving an awful lot over the next couple of days, so very little change, and temperatures still reaching those heatwave thresholds of 25 degrees Celsius in one or two places over the coming days, starting to drop off, so a little bit fresher into next week. Overnight tonight, easterly winds, so we're going to start to pull in quite a bit of low cloud, mist and fog to eastern parts. Elsewhere, dry and clear, with temperatures dropping to 12-13 degrees Celsius, quite uncomfortable in one or two places where those temperatures don't get much lower than about 14 or 15 degrees. But much like today, that early low cloud, mist and fog will gradually retreat back further east, and we will be left with a dry, sunny and warm day, potentially a little bit warmer than what we had today. Temperatures ranging from 22 to 26 degrees Celsius. Very little change for Sunday, but into the start of next week, our high pressure will pull slightly further north, and that will allow our winds to shift slightly to more of a northeasterly. So again, perhaps in the east of the region, we will see a little bit more cloud. One or two showers are possible. We could see some thundery downpours breaking out around the middle part of the week, but actually there is no significant rain in the weather forecast over the next 7 days or so. So the dry weather is set to continue. This is how Sunday is looking. A little bit of mist and murk early doors, but largely dry, lots of sunshine and warming up. Temperatures again 25 or 26 degrees Celsius, quite possible. And then into next week, with that area of high pressure pulling away, I think we will start to see a little bit more cloud bubbling up around the middle part of the week, with the risk of an isolated shower or two, freshening up slightly as well. So while I think temperatures will stay above average, the average for this time of year is about 18 or 19 degrees. And as you can see, even though they do drop slightly by the middle part of the week, they will, for the vast majority, be above average for the time of year. But yes, this weekend is looking dry, sunny, warm. Not very often that I get to say it.
No, this is perfect as well. I'm actually going on holiday tomorrow, and it always seems to be the case, doesn't it?
That's why.
It's warmer at home than it is abroad.
Well, thank you for giving us some nice weather by going on holiday. If you can do it more often, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's the trick. Book a holiday and it'll warm up at home.
Make my life easier.
Good night.